we want to, I think carefully, because Luther doesn't say the fourth commandment should cease to apply, but could cease to apply. And here we get into this very um, difficult thing when we think about how, what does my neighbor's sin mean to my love? And can we just remember the five things that give shape to our love? So there's five love as, and this could be a longer list, but this is just as I've been a pastor and been thinking about this, and this list seems helpful to me because so many times I'm visiting with someone, and basically the question is, the question is, what do I do? And the answer is love. We're always called to love. But the next question is, well, what does my love look like in this situation? Now, that the first question, just that that in whatever circumstance that you're in, you are called to love. That's already, I think, very helpful. So someone hurt you, someone's wounded you, someone's done something bad, whatever it is. What am I supposed to do? The answer is I'm supposed to love. But what does love look like? What is the shape of love? Okay, so the first shape of love is the Ten Commandments. So that and the Ten Commandments give us in some ways the boundaries of love. If you are breaking the Ten Commandments, you're not loving. Let it all this. I mean, this is one of the ways that the devil wants to set love against the Ten Commandments, and this is the whole love is love thing, as if what love means is there are no commandments. No, the Ten Commandments define love. Adultery is not love. It's anti-love. Murder is not love. It's anti-love. So the Ten Commandments are the first thing that gives shape to love. The second thing that gives shape to love is our vocation. And so all of us have different vocations, our station in life, and we have multiple stations in life, and love looks different in each vocation. So I'm called as a husband, that love has a certain shape. I have a vocation of father, that love has a different shape. And in fact, it has different shapes according to each of the children that I have, especially as they're in different stages of life. There's pastor love. That's very, very different than the neighbor love. If I were to go and buy, as an example, if I go to buy shoes for everyone in the congregation, you'll think, wait, hold on, what are you doing? That's what dad loves looks like. Well, that's probably more mom love. I don't think I've ever actually bought shoes for the kids. But anyway, you got the point, is that the shape of love is according to vocation. Okay. So that's the second one. Now, there's the external compulsion and the internal compulsion. And so the third thing that shapes our love is our neighbor's need. And can I just put the fourth one down there, because I think I want to put these next to us. So our neighbor's need, and this fourth one is our gifts. And here the question is, what are you good at? So this has to do with that which is external. This has to do with that which is kind of internal. What do I like to do? What are my special gifts? What gives me joy? What's my passion? These kind of questions. Now, can we notice that most of the time when people are thinking about where to live, what should I do for a job, what's my calling, they start here at number 4, and they state, what are your gifts? You do inventories, the things that drive you. I think those are important, and they're on the list. If you're good at farming, you can love your neighbor by farming. If you love to write, you love your neighbor by writing. In other words, that is there, but it's certainly not the only thing. And it's also not the first thing. It's the fourth thing, because we have the Ten Commandments giving us the broad scope. We have our vocation and our calling. We have our neighbor's need, and then we have our own particular gifts. Now, one thing to consider is that, for example, if you're a young person and you don't have a vocation yet. I mean, you have a vocation of, say you have a vocation of son and student, but your life as a student is preparing for another vocation. Now, maybe there's a lot to say there, because student is its own vocation, and God be praised, it's great. But student is a preparatory vocation for another vocation. And you say, well, what should it be? In other words, if you can say it like this, if there's a blank here, if I do not yet have a vocation, now I have to spend a lot of time here. But this time here, what am I good at? What do I like to do, et cetera, should not be to the neglect of this. What does my neighbor's need? Because I don't want to do something useful. The Lord has given us gifts to use for my neighbor, and we want to always keep the neighbor in mind. Woe to the man, for example, who says, well, I want to be a pastor because being a pastor really gives my life meaning. Our vocation is pouring us out for the benefit of our neighbor. It's an act of service, not self-service, self-definition, self-fulfillment, because you can't, remember, fulfillment, you cannot be achieved by aiming. You can't hit it by aiming for it. It's one of these great mysteries, like happiness. The only way to be happy is to not try to be happy. The only way to have meaning is to try to not have meaning. The only way to be authentic is to not think of authenticity. This is this point here, is the only way to be fulfilled is to try to empty yourself. Those who love their life lose it, but those who lose it for my sake find it. This is this great mystery of life. So that our vocation, it's fine to say, what am I good at? What gives me passion? Or what excites my passion? What am I passionate about? What do I want to do? That's fine to think of, but it has to be in service to the neighbor. 3, 4 has to come after 3. Okay, but no, the reason why we're talking about this is that there's a 5th thing that shapes our love for the neighbor, and that is, and this is the tricky one. It's somewhat, it's kind of, one of these things is not like the other. And it's this: our neighbor's sin. And here, just as an example, if someone is wrapped up in something wicked, evil, or sinful, then it curtails and reshapes our love for them. So just as a simple example, my love for my children looks different when they're doing something wrong. It might look like discipline or punishment or instruction or whatever. But it looks different than it normally does, because it's shaped by their sin. My pastoral counsel looks different than it normally does if someone is caught up in a particular sin. Well, maybe not that. It's just because that's always what it is to be a pastor. But here also is the case, is that honoring your father and your mother looks very different when your father is Laban. In other words, there's normal honoring your father and your mother, and then there's the strange constraints that a Laban puts on your honoring of father and mother. Now, this is the point, you're still called to love, but that love has to in some ways be adjusted because of the sin of the person that you're called to love. If your niece invites you to her wedding, the love of an aunt and uncle looks like going to the wedding, unless your niece is trying to marry a girl. And now your love looks different. It looks like not going to the wedding. It looks just, and it's difficult because it's an alien love. Like that's how Isaiah talks about the when God preaches the law, that it's an alien act. It's not what love should look like. It's love that that has to be adjusted because of sin. And so here's the trouble that Rachel and Leah and Jacob are all in. What does Laban's sin, how does that affect our love for him? That's the calling. So when it comes to these difficult situations in life, these are the constraints that we're trying to work on. And it's difficult. Now, having these 5 love-shaping questions, I think, is helpful, because here I'm in a difficult situation and I know what I'm called to do, to love, but I don't exactly know what love looks like. So how should I think about it? How should I try? And so what are the 10 commandments? What's my vocation? What's my neighbor's need? What are my gifts, etc.? And to know, again, that the neighbor's need take precedence over gifts. If you see someone beat up in the ditch, you're like, well, I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to help. No, Our neighbor's need takes precedence over our gifts, especially in an emergency. When that need accelerates to number one, emergency knows no necessity, et cetera, et cetera. But that this is the shape of our love. But here it's like, what does it mean? How can I love in this particular situation? And how can I love without engaging in sin? Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm interested to see if you guys have uh questions about that particular thing. So here we are back. I told you I wanted to go fast, and then I got stalled for 45 minutes. All right, that's all right. Here we go. So this tyranny, so this has to do with the question of how in the world Leah and Rachel are supposed to honor their father and their mother.